Welcome to Deep Dive. I'm Kevin Benedict, your host, and I want to thank everyone out there for joining us today. I'm excited to be able to introduce my guest today. His name is Drew Hofler, and Drew is the VP of Portfolio Marketing at SAP Ariba. Thanks for joining us, Drew.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Hello, everybody.
So, Drew, where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from sunny but snowy Minneapolis, Minnesota.
All right. Well, I'm here in the McCall, Idaho studio of Regalix TV.
Nice.
So, tell us about yourself. For those that haven't had the good fortune to meet and spend time with you, introduce yourself to the world.
Sure. Hello, everybody. So, like I said, my name is Drew Hofler. I've been with Ariba for about 12 years now. And I had a background in finance and treasury management and banking, came over here, invented and built out our dynamic discounting and payment solutions, and now am running the portfolio marketing area, which is classic solutions marketing with a bit of a broader view. I, like I said, live in Minneapolis and have a couple kids. I'm an empty nester. I started work when I was 12 years old, so clearly I'm only about 35 right now.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, look great, huh? And in my spare time, I like to ride my motorcycle in the summer and work in my wood shop in the winter. So.
Well, that's terrific. We're empty nesters here as well. We started early as well, and that was there are advantages, Drew.
That's right.
So, Drew, you've been at SAP Ariba over 12 years. That must mean you like it.
I do like it. We've been on quite a journey in the last 12 years. When I started, I joined the Ariba network team right as it was getting formed to really build out the Ariba network to be, really the core of what Ariba is. And, what was it, about 8 years later, 4 or 5 years ago or so, when SAP acquired us, that was the primary reason why they acquired us. And now, we have the world's largest B2B network with, close to $3 trillion in annual spend and, millions of suppliers and buyers. And so it's been, quite an exciting journey, one of growth and getting to do cool things in the procurement space. And it's a great time. Good people.
Wow. And $3 trillion, I was reading, that's about the equivalent of the UK's gross national product on an annual basis.
I like that comparison. There you go. Yeah,
it's like you have your own virtual country there with its own digital economy. That's incredible. We'll try to dig into some of that as well there. So if you're on an elevator with a business person or sitting next to them on a plane,
sure,
and they say, tell me what SAP Ariba is, what would you say?
So SAP Ariba is a company that helps you connect and collaborate across the entire source-to-settle process of buying stuff from vendors, whether that be direct materials to feed into your end product, like a computer chip or a motherboard or whatever, or whether that be indirect materials to fill out your office space and computers and desks and all that kind of thing. Or even services. 40% or so of labor spend in most companies these days is external workforce and services. And we've recently, joined up with another SAP company, Fieldglass, and kind of merged our organizations to, so that we cover pretty much all of the vendor-related spend. So everything from finding a vendor to, qualifying them, to negotiating contracts with them, to to sending them POs and invoices, to ordering off of catalogs, to then receiving invoices in, to negotiating early payment, and then finally executing the payment. That entire source to pay process, that's basically pretty much in a nutshell what we do. And then if you add on the network in that, what that allows us to do is take that process and connect you with your suppliers and to go back and forth outside of the four walls of your business, to connect to third parties on our ecosystem, to add applications and value add data and things to that effect. So it's really a community ecosystem that is designed to collaborate across that entire source to settle process.
That's interesting. It just occurred to me that, so SAP, of course, for the last 40-some years has been building ERPs kind of end-to-end within the four walls of an organization. And now SAP Ariba is stretching that beyond the four walls into the whole ecosystem of
That's right.
suppliers and everything else, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's what Ariba really does, and it works very well with SAP ERP as well as other ERPs. I mean, when we were acquired, I think about 45 or so, 50% was SAP of our customers were SAP based. Others were, Oracle and others. So we're agnostic from that point. But the idea is all that investment you've made in your infrastructure behind your four walls, right? It's great. It's perfect for automating your processes internally, making them run smooth. But the fact of the matter is, source to pay you have to interact with external vendors. And so we allow you to do that and connect what your investment to your supplier's investment. Maybe they're a big supplier and they've automated their end, and so it connects right in. Or maybe they're a small supplier and they go online and get their PO or fill out their invoice. We make that very easy for you to do, and then capture value at the different points along that process by, for example, taking the invoice from a supplier, comparing it to a contract that's in your contracting system, and making sure that when that invoice comes in, it's got the appropriate amounts and everything else in it, so exceptions are taken care of without anybody even looking at. So yeah, it's really that connecting the internal with the external and then adding value around that whole process.
About 20 years ago, I had the title of B2B e-commerce manager at Micron Electronics. Yes. And we were doing EDI and supply chain onboarding and trading partner negotiations. And we were doing it just one-to-one or one-to-many, just me and my team reaching out to our trading partners, agreeing on a standardized electronic document and what it means to be valid. And you guys are doing it at scale.
Yeah, and that's really that's really the key too. And it's funny, like I said, 12 years ago when I started with the network, one of the things that we always do when we get a new customer or prospect is we compare their vendor master with the suppliers that are on the network. And I don't know, 12 years ago, I'd say the average match was somewhere around 20-25% of their vendors were on the network. Now it's upwards of 80 or more percent, because we've just reached saturation, and particularly in certain verticals, but really across the board. Your supplier as a company is most likely doing business with another buyer on our network. And so it makes it pretty easy, well, relatively so. Supplier enablement's always a challenge. It's one of the more challenging parts, but it makes it a lot easier when they're already doing the similar business with somebody else. It's just flipping a switch and turning them on.
Absolutely. So you have a unique position there at portfolio marketing. And there must just be a couple of handfuls of people around the world that have a similar role. So it's unique. It's not like you're walking in the footsteps of somebody else who's done it and there's a proven game plan. So, how do you approach this as a marketer? Who's your target market, and, what's unique about your role?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, portfolio marketing is in some ways traditional solutions marketing, but because we have such a large portfolio of solutions across that source to pay cycle, we have to be able to tell a cohesive story. We have to be able to show how the part in the first part of the process in sourcing and supplier risk relates to the last part, and why a platform with these interweaved, interlocked, and integrated solutions work well together. So when you talk about target audience and who we're talking to, that's really interesting in my role too, because we have the very center of the target for us is the procurement audience, the chief product officer. But we also have built out a very large supply chain function. That's a slightly different audience. We also have an audience in accounts payable and finance, because we help companies with working capital around the payment speed and process. And also with Fieldglass, we've got the CHRO, the Chief Human Resource Officer. So there's a broad audience. So as a marketer, we have to create the storylines specifically to those audiences to let them know, that we understand what their specific pain is, and show them specifically not our products, but more how we can come along as a partner, bring a tool bag of things to them and solve the problems that they have. But then we also have to do that in the context of the overall portfolio, because really one of our advantages, I think, is that we have this end-to-end portfolio that is truly built on the same platform. It's all integrated with SAP and within itself. So we have to tell that story across the portfolio so that we can raise the level of conversation to the strategic level, not just solving, putting out a fire or solving a problem right there, but solving that problem and setting people up to be able to expand that out to even the CEO level. So that's really the challenge of my job, and it's a fun one to kind of weave those storylines together.
Well, yeah, my wheels are
Yeah.
turning here, and I'm thinking, okay, look at all the different personas and where the
Yeah.
personas are in their buying journey, and then raise that above
Right.
to kind of the board, executive and board level. What
Right.
do you need to present to them? Because that's a really compelling story to the board, really
Yeah.
compelling story to the executives. But on each of the different personas underneath it in the executive suite,
Mhm.
you've got to make that case too. That's going to require a ton of content, it seems like.
Yeah,
Do
and it's
you have a warehouse full of content generators?
yeah, I think we do, right? We have a lot of content, but the interesting point, now as we evolve in marketing is that the types of content that matter, right? We always will produce things that our sales folks can use right in the field and that they can leave behind, and there's always going to be a need for that, but it is shifting quite a lot to some bite size, I guess the term now that a lot of people have tended to use, a snackable type of content, digital content, with like GDPR, for example, we can't push as much stuff out, so we have to have content that is enticing, that is appealing, that's easy to consume, that draws people in, right? So that we get that inbound effect digitally. So, and a lot of people are consuming. They're learning in different ways now, not just reading a white paper, right? That's probably a little anachronistic, although there's still a lot of people that like to do that. But there's a need for video. There's a need for sound bites and podcasts. People are doing things differently. So it's really evolving the content side of things. And so we've kind of taken the approach of making it modular, right? Let's make our content really modular so that depending on the situation, if we need something a little heavier, great, we can just kind of put it together and make that work. Or if we need it in bite-sized pieces that people can consume in a quick manner, we'll do that as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. What a chore out there as well. Now, let's talk about something that I've read a lot about over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the small world networks to 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, my.
To the network effect and all those kinds of things. What does it mean when somebody talks about the value of a network effect?
Yeah, so there's a couple of layers to that. One is what I mentioned a moment ago, where it is the idea of you're benefiting from other people's activity upon the network. So supplier enablement, coming and finding 80% of your suppliers maybe already doing business.
Oh, yeah.
It makes that much easier. Another side of it is the idea that a network, particularly in the source to pay process, when we're talking about sending and receiving documents back and forth that need to be validated and approved and compared to other things, a network is very different from your old world of EDI, for example, where EDI, and please take no offense toward this, but I like to call EDI kind of a dumb pipe, right?
Yep.
It's something that, it's like the bank, if anybody goes to the drive-through anymore, right? And you put something in that vacuum tube, it sucks it up, sends it over to the party on the other side, and then they take it out and open it up. Well, a network can open that up in mid-transit and compare it, to all the things it needs to compare to, find exceptions, do all this type of stuff, so that by the time it actually gets to the end user, it's been cleansed, validated, and things have been identified. So that makes things very, 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 very easy. I'd say, another area of the network effect that we're really just starting to take off on right now is the idea of shared data, anonymized, of course, but that $3 trillion annually on the Ariba, and that's annual on the Ariba network from 2 million suppliers. There is a lot of potential intelligence inside of that. And so with AI and machine learning and some of the things that we're doing in terms of building out data as a service and intelligence as a service and various ways of building that in, the network effect gives companies the ability to learn from an aggregated pool that is much greater than they could have on their own. So those are three of the kind of the key areas that I certainly see.
Got it. So within your portfolio, you have so many different products and services that are available there. Which ones have grown faster than you expected, and which ones are you surprised are just not taking off as fast?
I would say some of the things that have grown really fast are our supplier risk recently, and this is recently, or some of our supplier risk things. So obviously, supplier, the risk in your supply chain, not only from the standpoint of understanding where something is in transit or when it's going to be delivered, and whether there's credit risk in your supply chain. There's also reputational risk and things to that effect, where if one of your suppliers is involved, for example, in human trafficking or slave labor or something like that, that'll tank your reputation as your company. So you need to know what's going on deeper in your supply chain. So, with the advent of social media and the importance of that aspect of protecting your brand and knowing really what's going on at a deeper level, that's been huge, and that's really taken off. Supply chain is a relatively new area for us over the last 3 or 4 years that we've built up, and that's been growing like gangbusters as well. I think for similar reasons, but really because of the network effect that we bring, right? That collaborative layer that the network brings to the deep supply chain stuff that like an SAP is doing in their supply chain, in their digital supply chain. We layer on top of that and provide that collaboration, and so that's really grown like crazy. And then other things like our guided buying that make the catalog and ordering process more consumer-like and very easy. Things that haven't grown, I think, as well as I would like them to. I think one of them is our payment product, primarily because our primary audience is procurement and those areas, and payment is very much treasury, and that's probably the audience that we have, the least for. So that's been a bit of a struggle, but we're doing a lot of things coming up in this next year that I think are going to appeal, because when you think about payment and say supply chain financing, again, that's buyers, suppliers, and third parties collaborating over the timing of payment, extending credit, and the data that's on the network is going to make that great. We just have to crack the nut on the audience for that. So,
all right, and I just remembered as you were talking there, your colleague Amisha Gandhi.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Reminded us that we have to plug SAP Ariba Live so you can catch up on all these new developments. And what is that, April 1 through 3?
That is the first week, yes. Monday coming in, Tuesday, Wednesday in Austin this year.
All right. So if any of you are interested, make sure you register for SAP Ariba Live in Austin, Texas, first week of April.
Yes.
All right.
That'll be
Here
fun.
we go, Misha. We got it in there for you. Awesome. I mean, when you have such a huge portfolio of different products at different maturity levels, that has to be just that added amount of excitement to wake up in the morning and try to figure out all those complicated scenarios.
That's a great way to put it. I like the way you put that. Sure. I'll take it.
So you've been in marketing. You have a marketing responsibility. How have you seen marketing itself kind of as a profession change over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I think marketing has become much more data-driven, much more, certainly much more inbound over the and earned eyeballs, if you will. It's become, and that's one aspect, but it's also become very much easier. I'm not going to say very easy, but much easier to segment and target who you want to talk to and finding where they are specifically. Following people with pixels, cookies online, and being able to, give them relevant information that other people like them have seen, and all that kind of thing that we see with, when you go look at a pair of shoes on Zappos, and all of a sudden now you're seeing, shoe side advertisements everywhere. Well, it just makes it easy to get information in front of the right people without necessarily broadcasting. We're always going to cast a bit of a net, right, and do the shotgun effect, but we're able to laser in a lot more now in marketing, I think. And then just the multimedia and multi-approach aspect of it as well has certainly grown. And I would say the last thing I'd say is probably the impact of email marketing has certainly diminished, although it's interesting, starting to read articles about how the pendulum is swinging a little bit more.
Yeah, I've read the same.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. That'll be an interesting, I don't know if that's an evolution or a devolution. I'm not exactly sure what to say about that.
Well, Drew, I've also read that handwritten notes are coming back too, so get ready.
You know what? That is a fantastic point for that really targeted personal touch. Nobody gets them anymore. It's like getting a present.
I know it.
Yeah, great point.
Absolutely. So in a very similar kind of question here, Digital transformation has changed everything. So all of your customers have been digitally transformed in some way or another.
Right.
When Ariba, SAP Ariba started, or just Ariba started,
right.
there was no mobile devices or anything being used out there by consumers anyway.
Right.
So, how has the general effect of digital transformation changed the business model of SAP Ariba?
I think from from like a product standpoint, you're forced to, or maybe you have the opportunity to, what's the right marketing term for that, but you have the opportunity to deliver the process in a way that is best in a non-monolithic way, in a way that is, again, targeted, similar to the marketing that we're talking about, being able to target people. From building out our products, right, we've gone on a very persona-based approach where we realize that, look, it's not okay to have a exact same UI, an exact same process, an exact same maybe desktop-based ability to interact with something across the different kinds of buying and the different kinds of personas. So, for example, we call what we're doing at SAP Ariba, Fieldglass, and even Concur, we call it intelligent spend management, which is spend management of all vendor spend. And the key to that is utilizing the digital transformation at the beginning to capture all your vendors together. But then when you enforce that policy at the user level, the UX, the UI, the particular process and system is very different. So, for example, I'm not going to want to source a strategic supplier through a mobile app. Right, I'm just not going to want to do that. There's a lot to that, but I'm also not going to want to go in and order my my travel and do my expenses on my desktop through some 19
PO system,
thousands looking PO system. My gosh, So, there's a use case where you need to fit it to the persona, and we're doing things like what we call procurement operations desk, which is geared specifically toward shared services, which is a big part of where we've gone. Guided buying, which is very, user at their desk may not even know how to spell procurement or say it, but can buy things very easily. So it's all about, in the digital transformation really enables you to, as a business, to deliver the value somewhat granularly, as is best, right? And so that's been good. And then the other thing, of course, being that everything coming digital, now we're able to deliver insights and drive intelligence around all the data coming through and suggest the next best step type of thing. So it's really transformed quite a lot.
Wow! So that seems like an environment that would be ripe for artificial intelligence,
Absolutely.
machine learning, automation, chatbots, RPA, robotic process automation.
Yep.
Do you see a little bit of all of that in the mix?
Absolutely, yeah. In the next this year, as well as growing on. I mean, really, this is part of the base of SAP's Intelligent Enterprise strategy, right? And this is our strategy too. You have to have the right foundation of the cloud type platform, the analytics engine, and the AI, machine learning, all that intelligent technology to build your processes upon, right? And then when you connect the network and all the data you get from that, because data in the world of intelligence is really the fuel that drives that engine. When you connect all those three things together, that platform for the future, the processes that cover total spend, all of your vendor spend, and that network that brings in data and allows you to connect that, I mean, that is a very fertile field for growing AI, machine learning, and all that type of stuff. Because, like I said, we've been around 20 years with the network, $3 trillion annually now. Over the course of our life, we've got, I don't know what the number is, $10-15 trillion worth of spend. So there is just a lot of data and a lot of insights to be gained and gleaned there, and a lot of things that we can turn around. And we're creating, APIs that people can tap into that and use what they want. We're creating, like I mentioned before, intelligence as a service and data as a service, and sort of compartmentalized intelligent pieces that they can tap into contracts. For example, if they have our contracts, they can pull up they can suggest better clauses from the repository of 100,000 contracts they've done in the past. It can suggest clauses. It can show them where maybe they're getting themselves into a potential liability, but it can help people create in kind of an interactive. And you mentioned chat bots and text in and out. We're using SAP's Copilot to build that. So it's very much exactly that. I can talk to it, and it can talk to me, and we can almost work together in partnership on that. So AI and machine learning and all that is intelligent technologies are absolutely, this is the time for them.
Wow. And none of that was possible, at least to the degree and at the level of intelligence that you guys are being able to deliver now, until you have that network and all the data in a unified environment. So you can truly have an intelligent network. That's a barrier to entry from anybody that's trying to compete. There's probably a handful of companies that maybe have integrated enough where they have that level of value. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, they don't have the volume to be able to make the kinds of decisions and choices and understandings and predictions that you do.
Yeah, one thing about having 20 years worth of volume of data on a network is that it takes 20 years to get. So it's really difficult for somebody to come in and disrupt and all of a sudden have this. I mean, that's why it's the treasure when it comes to the insights that you can get. But also beyond that, I mean, that's just our network that has all of that data from the source to pay and all the transactions and all that. But we're also, creating what we're calling a data plane, right? Which is the ability to connect other sources of data into a single plane where it's all usable together, right? So instead of just having the network data, which is hard to say just because there's a lot there, but you can also pull in third-party data, like Made in a Free World that we have a partnership with to pull in slavery data on the supply chain. If a company has their ERP data they want to pull in, they can pull it all into one spot, and then now you've got a much larger pool to pull from for those insights. So not only do we have I think a unique and fundamental advantage in the 20 years of network data, but we've also got an architectural philosophy and build that we're building out a way to even add more data to that and use it all together, right, to reduce those barriers.
Oh, yeah. When you can have those multiple data sources with different kinds of information, there's an exponential value that can be put together there. Wow, that's powerful. So over the last 5 years or so, how have your customers' expectations changed? Are they more demanding now because, they're used to using consumer devices and eBay and, consumer-based marketplaces, and then they come to SAP Ariba and go, now I have some expectations here I want you to fulfill.
Yeah, I think it's there's two sides to the answer. One is certainly the expectation of the individual user has certainly been raised based on our consumer experience, right? I mean, everything should be easy now, right? We should be able to find what we need very easily. We should be able to click a couple times and have it done and not worry about it. We feel like the payment and all of the details behind it should just be integrated, and we don't really need to think about it too hard. So that definitely is an expectation, and why we've, been moving toward a very much, like I mentioned before, a persona-based development and user-based, development, so that it does as much as we can there. Now, there's some realities in B2B that it's never going to be quite exactly like consumer, but things like guided buying, which allow you to have, visuals and easy click-throughs, catalogs, that type of thing should be very clear, as well as, just making the process moving through the system. The expectations have changed from, hey, give me an instruction manual on how to use this, to it should just be intuitive or in context, right, where the instructions are. That's one aspect. I'd say the other way expectations have changed is that over our journey as a procurement company growing, right, we were right in the beginning, and I think as we've talked to you, you knew about us way back in the day, but we helped really automate and remove the paper from the procurement process and whatnot. And so the first stage of most companies' evolution in procurement was really just getting their hands around that, automating the process, transforming it digitally, if you will. But now that that's mostly done, right, at this point in most companies, the expectation is now that we help them raise the level from a back office efficiency play to a strategic partner at the table for a CPO, right? That their hands are on all that they spend across all their vendors. There's so much information there. They want to be able to have insights, to be able to bring that to the board, if you will, and be a more strategic partner. And so the expectations are that we give them the tools to make those links, to connect the dots, and to gain that kind of strategic view and insight.
Wow, how
Yeah.
interesting. I don't think you're going to run out of challenges.
No, no, there's plenty to do.
Now, in marketing too, everybody's talking about experience, improving the
Hmm.
customer experience from end to end. And the challenge is experience means from the very beginning, first touches
Hmm.
in marketing, all the
Hmm.
way through the whole life cycle of a
Yeah.
customer. How do you guys manage that at SAP Ariba?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when we think of customer experience, you know that SAP, recently acquired Qualtrics, which is a leading customer experience group. So it's a couple of layers, right? It's our customers. Certainly, we think about it in terms of our customers, and making sure that we align what we tell them we're going to do in marketing to the roadmap, and to making sure that it's all cohesive, and we're telling the right story,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of the handoffs between at deployment, and things to that effect, and so that their experience, when they look at us or need to find information, is very similar when they first come in to when they are now a customer.
Yes.
We're also utilizing things like Qualtrics to receive feedback from our customers in a very fast way. Our chief product officer recently mentioned to me that it's almost like the consumerization of B2B software, where
Yeah.
we use things like Qualtrics to get a very fast feedback loop from our customers about what's working, what's not, and feed that into our development process to make that much quicker. As far as then driving it down into our customer's customer and how we do that, that's an interesting one that we're right now just wrestling with after we've gotten Qualtrics. I mean, it's definitely a step away from us, but certainly for our customers, suppliers who are not their customers, but it's still
Yeah.
a party there.
Yep.
We certainly are thinking about how to make their experience one that is valuable and easy to use, and interacting with their buyers is frictionless. So it's definitely a relatively new, I don't know, discipline to some
Yeah.
degree. I mean, customers always right has always been there, but this idea of customer experience is definitely something that's starting to influence what we do.
Yeah, I recently interviewed Grad Kahn over at Sprinkler,
Mm.
and Grad he said he got a new role, which is Chief Experience Officer,
Oh, sure.
and he said he doesn't know of anybody else that has that title,
I
but
haven't heard that one,
you
but
know,
it's coming.
yeah, in his role, you have to have enough authority and enough reach to
Hmm.
be able to influence the
Mm.
experience of customers across all domains and all business units and
Hmm.
all parts of the customer journey. So for the first time, companies are starting to realize, that really needs to be a top executive position to oversee
Yeah.
that across all units.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely. So final question here before I let you go,
Uh-oh.
Drew.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here we go. So,
Let's
what
go.
advice would you give, a marketer fresh out of the university? What advice would you give them about what skills they should really be focused on
Hmm.
developing today so that
Hmm.
they can be in a leadership position 10, 20 years from now?
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit. It's an intriguing question. I think that a marketer today needs to have a little bit of left brain and right brain together, and this is where I think the leaders of marketing are going to distinguish themselves, because as we talked about a little bit earlier, analytics, understanding the data, being able to parse it, and understanding what's important, what's not important, and not being a data scientist as a marketer, but knowing what you need to know, and
Yes.
knowing and learning how to use various different tools to get it, so that you can segment and you can target and you can make your message mold to smaller segments of folks that you're going after. That's going to be really critical. I mean, that's an absolutely critical part, and I think focusing on some of the top tools. If you look at the list of marketing software and providers out there, it's huge. I mean, there's just, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of different ones, but there's ones that rise to the top, and many of them operate the same. So understanding how to use some of that to get at specifically data and what you're looking for, and how to understand that data, is very critical. The other side, though, can't be forgotten, and that's the creative side, right? As marketers, we're creatives in a lot of ways. We can't lose sight of where we're just targeting certain people and then not thinking about how we're getting the message across to them. So developing, if you can, things like empathy and understanding how they're thinking about things, and And marketing in a B2B context has also kind of shifted a little bit from, hey, let's talk about our products, to, hey, let's understand what you're going through in your business and specifically how we can bring our tool set to you to, to solve that or to fix that. So I would say that the creative side and the data side, and then over time, learning how to weave those together, I think that's really what's going to distinguish the top marketers for a while.
Drew, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Your insight, your experience, your wisdom, your day job, the tactics, strategies, just your predictions, all of that. That's immensely useful. So thank you so much, Drew. And I want to thank everyone out there that tuned in for watching today.